Hello YouTube and welcome to this video on homeschooling. I always hesitate because I don't really know what I'm gonna call the video. So, homeschooled? Yes, I am homeschooled. What was it like homeschooling? What was it like homeschooling for me as a South African, Black even South African? What was that like? First of all, I think we're gonna start with how it started. How did I begin all this? Then my view, I guess, on this. It actually happened in a funny way. It was just around the end of... I'm gonna need to close that door. It's too hot. It started with sort of bringing this up jokingly. It was the end of the year, end of the 4th term, and I was in grade 6 and my sister was going to grade 12 the next year. But judging from how things were at the time then, everything that was going on in our schools, everything curriculum wise, the status of the schools and the schools around, like there were a lot of schools in the area I went to schools in Lens, you guys, and when I started school and when my sister started, of course, things were actually pretty good. Things were great actually. But then as time went on, then in grade 6, things weren't looking good. Like things just kept collapsing. Like the country itself was starting to go really downhill, like really quick as to where we are right now. And it was showing in the schools. The vibe changed, like just the schools around were worse than the high school my sister went to. It was not a great high school, like every single public school as it seemed at the time, especially if you didn't zoom in and search for like the best private school in a certain area. Everything was just collapsing and starting to crumble. And on the news, like school fights every single after school. This is something that's still obviously happening, but primary and high school alike. You can imagine that it was worse in high school. Even just people's grades, the overall grades and rates of the schools, they were not good. The only way to, as it seemed, to get a good education and even a safe school for that matter, so many things were happening in school. I don't even know, like, should I think you guys know, that's the thing. I don't have to really mention a lot what's going on in this country. Yeah, I think we know it. Bullying, everything was crazy. So the only option left was to take your kid to a private school. Principals, former principals of our schools, like the one when the schools were still good, left the schools to make their own private schools. So it's either you did that just out of the blues, like it's not something that was planned by most parents, including like mine too, that all of a sudden we're gonna have to take our kids to private school so that their futures are not at stake. That's when the homeschooling thing popped up, because we all knew this in the car. We didn't have to say much. It was like, things are bad, we don't really have many options. What do you guys think of homeschooling? That's actually how it came about. It's like, what do you guys think about homeschooling? It was in a joking matter, but also serious at the same time because we had no other option.
Joking! But it's sort of in that way that I'm not joking, you know?
And also my sister, especially her, you can imagine going to, guys, the teachers weren't taking their jobs seriously. You know, you want to get good marks and like get a good career in your future. Like, we were like, yeah, we could try that. And just from that moment in the car, my parents actually did research on the matter and homeschooling in the country, homeschooling just in average. And wow, they actually took it seriously. It was literally the week where you're about to get your reports. With a little bit of research, we're like, okay guys, we're taking this serious. Do you really want to homeschool? You're gonna homeschool. After we were like, yeah, you know, I was really excited. I love trying new things. I'm also raised to be an out-of-the-box thinker, but I don't really like doing the same thing for too long unless it's actually that fun and good. So yeah, I was really psyched. Are we really gonna do this? And yeah, we were really gonna do that. It was even crazier for my sister to, like, at the last year of school, we got our reports and my parents did the thing where you take your kids out of school and you let the school know that your kids are not going to be attending this school anymore. And so yeah, we did that and it was all good. Then my parents continued with the research and they found this homeschooling expo in Boxburg, which we actually went to go attend. And as you probably guessed, at the time We were like the only black people there, like there were only 2 black families there, so. But the kids were so free. One thing I noticed, and just themselves, they were, in society, we're like trained to be a certain way. The kids there were just playing themselves, and there was a side for kids outside, like jumping castles and snacks, and then there was speeches and a side indoor for parents interested. Yeah, we met this other black family. They had actually homeschooled their kids already. We were there to find out more and see how it all works, and yes, we did. Inside, people were advertising their, even not just theirs, but homeschooling books, like textbooks and methods of homeschooling. It was like a whole science expo, but it was people trying to sell you methods of homeschooling and explaining how they work. And then some of them were people advertising and selling exported homeschooling methods and textbooks, that kind of thing, just basically curriculum. Yeah, they were from the US. I think it's really popular obviously in those areas like Europe, but really the US. There was that, and then there was also South African people, and yeah, and even strange devices. It was so cool. It was actually so fun and eye-opening to be there and see it all happening. We ended up buying some curriculum from there, obviously. And I guess this is where it comes to my view in homeschooling and my explanation to people and what I've found after homeschooling, who just kind of wonder what it is. They have one view, which I also kind of had. The point of it is what I saw and learned from that day and that day on. I didn't really realize it in the moment, that there's no one way of schooling. And that's really what homeschooling is about. There's no one way of teaching different people, billions of people, like the same thing. And yeah, it doesn't have to be even what school teaches. It doesn't have to end there. Knowledge and learning is endless. You learn something new every day. There's not this prison-like way that school take this approach of schooling, that it's literally it's uniform. There's no like room for uniqueness, and even outside the box thinking. It's in like super private schools where I'm seeing like ads now, just scrolling online, are adding new things. There's not many schools like that. That. You as your own individual person are forced to learn things one way. The saying and believe like that school is not for everyone. It's that way of thinking and of teaching and of learning that's not for everyone. Because we're not the same. We're not all clones. We're just not the same. So that's what homeschooling is all about. And like it suits you as a person. It was really freeing. It was really fun and really freeing to do that and to get into this world. That's what I've learned. And now we're gonna get into the most asked question when people find out that we homeschool. The first most asked question is how or what? I can't find another phrase other than the weird one of piggybacking from that last statement. There's no one way. But how did I do it, or how did we do it? So I think I'm gonna focus on me obviously in this video. We kind of did things similarly with my sister. So how? My dad, in doing the research, and my parents, I guess, in getting the curriculum. So you'll notice that I mentioned my dad a lot in this. He was basically my teacher or tutor, but he had to find a way that it's not just about the kid, it's obviously also about the parents. A way that suited, a way that worked for both of us, because he had to go to work. He wasn't a stay-home parent or work-from-home parent, and it was before COVID, so working from home wasn't really a thing for many people, and definitely it wasn't for both of my parents. So he found curriculum that was promoting self-teaching for me, and it also had to work for me. He looked at me, my character, and just even how I was, I guess, with how I learned, how like my brain also learned, could I do this? He didn't really know this obviously because I went to school. He was trying to see if this way would work basically, and it's so flexible. That's another thing I really love about homeschooling, is that it's so flexible. If this certain thing you try doesn't work out, you try something else. And so we were trying this basically, and it was kind of a time when it actually all started happening. All that heavy from the expo, all that from that was kind of like there was more pressure. because like you could have messed up, you know, like we were trying this out, something that we didn't know, something that we were all new to, and your education is important. They didn't want us to make that mistake, but yeah, we could have also went back to school, you see. But yeah, the pressure was a little bit on. Point is, how did we do it? He got a curriculum that worked for both of us. Textbooks and DVDs, and they taught you, unlike the textbooks at school, where you're really dependent and reliant on the teacher and their textbook. The teacher's textbook basically explains, like, you can't self-teach yourself with that textbook. Everything is so incomplete. Because if you just read the school textbooks, the teacher writing examples on the board and telling you stuff. So this was new and I really liked it. Books basically tell you, explain everything fully, and then there's a teacher's guide in case you both don't understand something, or a way for the teacher to further explain something to you, maybe even in a different way, so that you can better understand. And the books were so flexible. They were free. There were some of like my English book, they like sometimes it's like they started day 1 to day 4, so they kind of like, hey, you can take English off on Fridays or as you wish. Like, it's so flexible and free. And I had ones with DVDs also, where for maths mostly you watch videos, the teacher explains. So it was this guy at first who was a math teacher who ended up also homeschooling his kids. So he would film like in a class, you see him and his board, and the kids would sometimes like talk examples. It was interesting. And so my dad would watch the video with me and ask me if I understood. He did that for about, I think 2 months. I'm not really sure, but he did it for a while at the beginning of the year to see how I was doing. Can I actually cope with teaching myself? Was this gonna work out? Were we gonna have to try something else? You know, when he went to work, was I gonna be? So to see that, and yeah, it ended up working out. He had to kind of be more firm with me to remind me that, you know, this is my education and that I'm going to have to be, in my case, my own teacher, and then I'd ask for help if I didn't understand. I really like that, you know. It really shaped how I am today. I'm really independent, in control of basically my own boss. Like, it's up to me. That independence, that, you know, this is you. Of course, we're gonna get deeper into this. Disciplining. Number 2, socializing. That's the second most asked question when anyone finds out that we're homeschooled. After, I guess, the first one, how? Socializing is very important. Humans are very social creatures. If they don't want to think of like you're keeping isolated and like trapped from the world, overprotected. Making friends in general, just having your own social life with people your age. So how it worked out for me was, let me point out, I started school actually a grade early. So I was a grade early. So my mom had a daycare, and I'd go to the daycare, play with the kids, teach the kids stuff, do art with the kids, and also she had an aftercare. To my or our convenience and surprise, the aftercare had a lot of kids around my age. The thing is, they started school 2 years later than me, or a year later. I could help them with their homework and that sort of thing. And then after that, socialized. That's how I made my friends, because my life at that time, I just moved into this new place. Everyone was new, and the kids themselves didn't know too many people. Like, that actually was a great way for us all to meet. We had sleepovers. That's how I made my friends. And I would have to finish my work first before my mom would come pick me up after school, after picking them up, so that I would go with them to the daycare. Sometimes they didn't have homework and we would just play around. Sometimes, you know, just come to my house, and that was fun. So socializing was like that at first. But an important thing with homeschooling is most homeschoolers, they have an outside of school activity they do, and it depends on the activity when you go. So that's when you socialize. Like, they go to soccer practice. So that's how my socializing was at first, and I enjoyed that. So my outside of school thing was basically going to help out my mom at her job, and that was fun for me. But then that changed, and then I kind of lost touch with most of those people. So what my outside of school school activity was I took piano lessons. So every Saturday we would go there, and that was fun. It was fun, and my parents would like do things so that we weren't too introverted, make us like go to the restaurants after the piano lessons and like order our foods sometimes, you know, things like that, just to build your confidence in life and you being able to do real life things like that. And actually there are other people after meeting us, my mom's friends, they also had kids, and so when they found out that we were homeschooled, they interviewed us, and then after a couple of interviews they did their own research and they actually started homeschooling their kids too. And all of us are doing things different. We didn't really have the exact same kind of curriculum. It had to work for you, the kid, and for the parent, depending on the parent's job, time, everything. So they took soccer, they took like gymnastics, ballet. With all that said, it probably brings up the question of, is it expensive? Expenses in this country. Hello, we're over here now. No, homeschooling actually is the opposite of expensive. Like I mentioned in my other video, that I believe that anything can be expensive if you choose to make it. That you can choose the most expensive curriculum, just like if I wasn't homeschooled. I could have chose an expensive school or even a private school instead of go a school that was just right, that met all my needs, you know? It's the same with this. First of all, you cut out expensive so much. Uniforms, school lunches, and transport, paying transport drivers or even petrol if your school's nearby. You cut on that when you homeschool. You save a lot. You simply just buy the books that work for you, buy the curriculum apps, websites, you pay for them, and sometimes you don't even really pay at all. One book on how to teach your kid, it could be even way cheaper. It could have been way cheaper. It's not done the same. So it depends on that. Some people, like one of those people, friends of ours that we were acquaintances that also homeschooled. One of them got a tutor because that worked for them and that's what they wanted. I never got a tutor, so I still have these same books I started with, like, and you can relearn and like remind yourself from those books. Yeah, it's really not as expensive as people think or try to make it seem. I guess it's just unpopular. The last question must be for super disciplined people. I guess what a lot of people hear about my story, my sister's story, basically after answering all these questions, they think you must be really disciplined to do that. That's what the other group of people that also homeschooled their kids thought. That's another thing. This is a good thing to bring up, is that we're not the same. You have to keep that in mind. Homeschooling is not for everyone. I know of someone who did try to homeschool and it seemed to be working out a bit, but they just lacked that discipline to an extent. This is the same for even at school though, that you need discipline to do your work. Basically the teacher can yell at you, but you get to certain places where it's up to you to study. It's up to you to actually do your homework that might be worth 20% of your grade. It's up to you to study for exams. The teacher can teach you stuff, but it's up to you. So it's a little worse in homeschooling, especially depending on the kind you choose, depending on the parent themselves and or teachers and the kids. So if you have to have a little bit of discipline for school, you know, to just get by. But I think a little bit more when you're homeschooled, especially on the average, on depending on the kind you choose. So yeah, the ones we chose did need you to be quite disciplined, did need for the parents to have that trust in us. We could do it ourselves, that we could school. And of course we're kids, you know, they have to step in sometimes and be like, what, like, you know, to check up every now and then. Let me see what you've been doing. Are you understanding? My dad would like ask me to summarize what I've learned to see if I understood. And some topics he was familiar with, but for other cases, the textbook, you read what I'm supposed to be doing at this time. When you do have the time in the week, like once a week, just have to kind of have that. But for the rest of the people that did try homeschooling, they are homeschooling to date and they love it too. Like all of us started at school, but then we changed to homeschool. You have more control in what you get to learn. You have more control in what your future looks like. Because my school, the things I'm interested in now, my school didn't take seriously at all. So schools can just be biased and focus on certain things and certain careers, push for students from this school to what they see as real careers, especially in this country. elementary again. But you have more, you can find out, you all as a family or as a parent, guardian, you can find out what your kid is actually like, what drives them, something they can really be good at in the future, something you can focus on at a young age already without being hindered by school, without wasting even time on things that you will not need in your future specifically. Sometimes you know from a young age what you're interested in already, you, nje, minus parents and stuff, but schools, even like when you bring up like in career days, sometimes they just like can bring you down, like make it feel like whatever you're interested in, or even sports, with anything, subject that no, like this sport they don't even do at their school and you might be really good at it. You have control, you have freedom. You don't have to have that at all. You can have full control on exactly what you want to focus it on. Amen. Yeah, homeschooling, the whole concept of it in general, how there's no one way, that freedom for anyone having that potential to be accommodated. Like new ways of homeschooling are invented like every day, you know, and like people get their knowledge. It doesn't even need to be the knowledge they teach at school. Again, I want to emphasize on that. The point is it promotes out of the box thinking. Homeschooling promotes out of the box thinking. Like the future kids, the next generations can honestly like really invent new things even, you know. How did I put it here? Also really a thing that I loved about it was that it gave that space of, okay, really it's just you now. And you know at school when you're like, oh, if I had more time to myself I would be doing this in the morning, or just that actual, it gave more time for that. It's like, okay, here's the time. And so I, for one, I totally recommend it to anyone out there. Yeah, especially after COVID. You guys saw how our education system, like honestly, I'm hearing a lot of complaints from friends, from acquaintances, from people I come across, and because especially after COVID, things we left when we thought things were going bad. Things got even worse. People during COVID, like teachers weren't taking things seriously. I think, again, I think you guys know, but because people lived this, and the fact that like, I don't remember if it was percentage, but I think didn't care. The teaching methods, the teaching processes, people actually themselves took upon themselves. I have like friends, cousins who have to take after school classes because the schools just don't care anymore. And this is from all over the country. Like still, I really do recommend for anyone wondering about this that you do your research on homeschooling. And oh man, it's even getting worse. My mom actually sent me this video of where the education system is headed in South Africa, what it's actually gonna look like in coming years. I don't remember when exactly. Everything, it's so bad. It's from a person who's in the education system of the government, who's actually just shocked about this. I don't know if you guys seen the video already. I think I'll link it because I'm also not sure I can show it. I was also really a little horrified to see what people, this next gen is gonna learn. Yeah, it's bad, you guys. So if you guys are interested, I hope this video really helped you. Again, I totally recommend, first as everything so far, I recommend that you do your own research. We're not the same people. So yeah, you find what works for you. You do you. Feel free to comment below if you guys had any questions on this that I'll show in my next video. I will be showing you guys exactly how I actually did these things in my next video. I'll be showing you an average day in my life as a homeschooler and how my routine mainly was and what I did and what worked for me. Yeah, might even work for you if you're interested. Yeah, thank you guys for, hey, what happened to my lighting? Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.